All right, perfect. So Wendy asked me to teach this class as on, you get a listing and then what do you do next, right? You guys have checklists and whatnot, but I think it's always best when someone can just kind of walk you through and explain all those steps and what to do, especially on your first couple listings. So I guess off the bat, does anyone have some initial questions or items that you want me to cover? And then we can kind of go from there and just start from the time that you get a listing appointment and just kind of walk through the whole process until you get a contract.
I guess the biggest question I would have would be about the seller net sheet. So that would be my biggest question.
Okay. Anyone else? Oh, nothing particular here from Zach. Thanks for the chats.
Yeah, Kelly, I would just like to know, exactly what documents we need to have signed right at, if once someone says, yes, I'm ready to go, the withhold form and then the input form, the MLS input form, what do we need?
Okay. Perfect. So I think what I'm going to do is I am going to share my screen here. Let's see. Desktop, share. Is going to let me do it. It doesn't look like I have permission. Okay, so that's all right. I'm just going to pull this up on the other side though, so I can walk you guys through. Actually, let's see. It would be really great if I could share my screen, because then I can show you how I set up a listing with those documents. I might have to get Wendy, but let's see if I can do that, if I can figure out how to change my settings.
Do you want me to contact Wendy and ask her to do that?
She's right here. Let's see. Hey, Wendy. Wendy.
Yes, ma'am.
Do I have permission to share my screen? Is that a
Yes.
Zoom thing? So it's my computer. That's
So
my,
do you want me to go in and like make you host? You should, because I don't have any restrictions on there.
okay.
Try it and see.
It might be me. All right, let's try one more time. Open system preferences.
If not, Kel, I will log in and make you host.
No, I think it's my problem. It's a me issue. I don't know why it won't let me click on it to share. Hey, Wendy. I think it's a me issue, actually.
I'm going to name Miss Kelly our host so that she can.
Open system security and system preferences, security and
All right. Great. I'm glad you guys are all here.
Yeah,
Kelly, you have to know that this was specifically requested
that's
by
a
our crew.
good. Yeah,
And they have questions, I will tell you. So,
I've gotten.
You- yep, you are the woman with the answers. So I'm gonna leave you to do your thing. Can you
Yeah,
share screen?
no, it's
Me and Maureen actually had that exact same problem once, and the person who sets up the Zoom has to go in and allow permission. We were having the same issue, so it took us a minute, Maureen, for us to figure it out. But the person who initiates
I
the
made
Zoom
you the
has-
host, but I made her the host. And I
Okay.
set it up, so she should have.
I think it's my computer. Because it won't let me click on that.
Or I will go back and look at my setup. But it shouldn't be any different than it always is. I'll go look at it.
Okay. Oh, man. I'm so sorry, you guys.
I was wondering, Kelly, if it would be easier for you to send out a link from your Zoom account? Would that screw everything up?
Mm, I don't know. Maybe. Advanced sharing options. Let's see. No, I mean, it says who can share, all participants who can start sharing. I think it's my, so when I
Kelly-
go to share my screen, and then let's try this.
Kelly, I'm almost agreeing with you at this point. I have the least computer experience, but it's allowing me to share. I actually pressed the share button, so it's actually allowing me to share with everyone.
Yeah, so when I go into the setting that it says I have to change, like it's grayed out and it won't let me approve, like it won't let me click on that privacy. And I don't know how to I don't know what the thing is.
Yeah.
Click the lock to make changes. Oh, where's the lock button? Oh, wait, I think I figured it out if I would read. You will not be able to record the contents of your screen until it is quit. You can choose to quit Zoom now and do a, all right, let's do later. Later, all right. Let's try. I think I got it. Can you guys see? my
Yay.
screen?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay,
Yay.
I don't know what to do with that little thing. I'm not gonna do anything. Okay. So let me get logged in. Thank you guys for being so patient.
You bet.
I'm gonna close my door now, so I don't have to yell at Wendy from across the way. Okay, so when I come into the MLS and then here, we'll go under Kelly here. Okay. So, and then you're going to go to tools and you'll go to transaction tools. So the first thing that I did when I came in here is I created a template that had all of the documents that I would need for a listing or for an offer. And so I'm going to show you that, and that's going to go through. I did. It was all me.
Okay.
It
I
was a
went back
little-
and Double checked all the settings.
You did wonderfully. It was just me not knowing how to approve the privacy thing. And when I actually read the screen, it gave me the directions. Okay, so if you come in here to the little gear section, in here, there's transaction templates. So you can create your own transaction template however you want. And so you can see there's some in here already. So like profile, our transaction management team already has some templates in here, and then some of the teams have them as well, as you can see. So you can just click on add, and then you can call it, right, your listing docs. And then you can do residential listing. And I'm going to show you how to do this. And then you can add in those required forms. So if you come in here to forms, and then you click here, I'll go through the list of required forms that'll answer that first question. So the first thing that you're going to need for a listing is agency. So if you click on agency, and then you're going to need KW disclosures. I wonder what that's called. It's right here. And then you're going to need your listing, your actual listing doc. So that's going to be exclusive right. And then you'll want to withhold unless you're going to put the property on the MLS within 2 days. So it's always safe to get the withheld form. And you guys can all use this form. It'll be, I think I can share it with the whole office, so you won't have to do this again. Then there's a few other forms that I like to put in here just in case. So you have like lead-based paint. So you can get that ahead of time. And then you have seller's property disclosure or disclosure alternative. Right, so I like to have both of them in there. So then just depending on the property, I can just select whichever one it is. Oh, I'm talking and not reading properly. All right, so there's our disclosure. And then here's our disclosure alternative. All right, so let's look and see what we have so far. And I've got this, you guys, template bar here. All your little cute faces are sitting there. Okay, so we have agency, we have KW disclosures, we have our exclusive right, we have our withhold, we have lead-based paint if it's needed. We have, and then our disclosures. And then depending on where you have a lot of your listings, you may want to include like the well disclosure or the location map and the sub-sewer disclosure as well. If you're going to be in that market and you think you'll use those quite often, then you don't have to go find them and they're already in there. And it kind of triggers your brain then every time you start a transaction. Oh, do I need that or not need that? So you can add those in there as well. Sorry, I have to keep moving your faces here. So we would do well disclosure. And the thing about a well disclosure is if you're even working in like St. Louis Park or Crystal, and the well has been sealed, you still have to do a well disclosure and a location map. And then you're going to go to the state and collect your well sealing record, or have the seller hire a well company to come out and seal it. So those are still required. So if there was ever a well on the property, even if it is sealed, you still have to do that well disclosure and location map. All right, so now we have well disclosure, location map. Oh, and then we need that last disclosure for subsurface. So that's this disclosure here. All right. So I think that's about all the forms that I could think of that you would need off the bat for a listing. And really the only ones that are going to be required for compliance are going to be that agency, the KW disclosures, the listing contract, and then if you're withholding it from the MLS, that withhold form. Those are the only ones that'll be required to just submit to the office. And then you'll want to get that property disclosure as soon as possible. And I'm going to show you a couple of tricks on how to get these filled out. Oh, and then you want to do the input form if the office or you have a transaction coordinator doing input for you. So there's single family. And then if it's a vacant land, there's a different one. So that's lots and land here. If it's commercial or mixed use, that's a different form. And then multifamily is a different form as well. So if you have like a duplex or a triplex or a quadplex, you'll use that multifamily. All right, so now we have all of our forms here, and let's see if
Can I
I
just
can.
ask you a quick question?
Yeah,
For a townhome, which one of those would you use?
single family.
Okay.
It's just when you have like 2 units. So like you're selling, like if it's a duplex and you're selling both sides of the duplex, then you would use multifamily. If it's a townhome side by side and you're selling 1 unit, then it's single family. Does that make sense?
I thought the multifamily was only if it was 4 units or more. Is that not the case? Is it 2 or more?
It's 2. I've used it for duplexes. Matter of fact, I'm doing one right now and that's what I used because they wanted to get the rental information for the 2. Like that's the input that has the rental information and like it splits apart, like how many beds and baths.
That makes sense. Okay.
So, I mean, maybe the rule is that you could still use single family, but I think you're doing a disservice to your seller by
That makes
not
sense.
having the information there. Okay, so now you have all of your forms in here. And so you can actually set some defaults. So they're in here every time. So the agency, there's nothing to fill out on that form. But if you come over here to the disclosures, KW disclosures, you can scroll down and enter your broker admin fee. So it's the same every time you come in here. So the office charges $375. So you can put that in there. If you're charging additional, then you can put that in here. And that's how then you can make a little bonus off of the admin fee. And so if you enter whatever you want in here, and then you click the save, then every time you pick this template, it's going to already be populated in there. And you can change it once you get into your transaction. I'll show you that in a few minutes. But that way you're doing less each time. All right, so now we have our forms in here, and I don't know if there's I'll show you what I do for a seller's net sheet because I find it easier than maybe the spreadsheet that might be included in here. So we'll get to that. All right, so now we have all of our forms in a template and we just called it listing docs and anyone can use it. So then we're going to come over here to our transactions. And I'm going to show you a few little tricks here. So if we add a transaction, and we're just going to do this test listing, right? So this is where we're going to pick that template from the drop down that's going to pull those forms in every time so that we make sure that we have all the proper forms. So if we click on listing docs, and then the next thing is we can pick a listing to copy, which is going to pull in address information. It will pull in the other agent and some of that stuff, so you have to edit it out, but it does save a lot of time with entering address and whatnot. So does anyone have a listing right now? Want to pull it in? No. We'll just do this one. All right, so I'm going to grab this listing, the MLS number, and I'm going to come back over here and we can enter that listing here. And then it's going to ask you how they want to add you. So this is going to populate your information into the transaction as well. So because this is a listing, we are going to have us be the seller landlord agent. And then we hit create.
So you use the listing number that is provided for you when you do a withhold. Is that correct?
No,
Oh.
we're using, so say the
A
property.
previous?
Yes, and it
Okay.
can only be if it's been listed before and you want to copy the information over. Say they've done tons of renovations or something like that, and maybe it's not worth it. Or the listing has never been on the MLS, so then you do have to come in here and manually enter it all. But I would say in most cases, it's pretty easy just to copy over.
And then edit. Okay.
Yes. So then you're going to come in here. So this is all the information that it pulls that you don't have to go look up, like the property tax ID number and the legal description, and all of that is going to come over. And then, so this is one thing that's going to pull from the old listing is the list price. So you want to make sure that you either delete this out if you don't know what it's going to be yet, or enter the correct list price. So we're going to say it's going to be 400. All right. So that's really the only thing that you do on this first screen. And then it'll trick you to say save and exit. So that's going to trick you to get out of that wizard. But if you just click next on here, it's going to take you to the next piece. So this is another page where you're going to edit. So it's going to have the old list date. So potentially this could be from, 2004, right? So you'll want to delete all that and then put in the date. So it would be today's date. Oh, and actually you have to do like the real date. I do this every time, by the way. I'm a slow learner. You have to put the whole address in. And then you can say you're going to have it expire at the end of the year. You can do that. And then I take out this offer date. You don't need it for right now. And then that's it. I take a look. If it was previously closed, this closing date would be entered as well. I delete that out. So it doesn't populate on any new forms that you put in, like when you pull in a purchase agreement or something like that. So I edit and then delete anything not needed. And I hit next. Now this is where it pulled in the other agent's information that was on the listing. So you just come over here and you just delete. It's real fast and easy. All right, so now we're down to our brokerage, and then it should say your name. So at this point, I'm going to add in my seller's information, because then that'll populate right onto the contact or right onto the contracts. And then it's also going to make it easier when we go to send this for signing now. And when you get a purchase agreement, like their contact information is going to be in there. So everything then becomes faster. So you just click on create, and then you're going to pick seller. And then you can type in their first and last name. And then this is where it's really important. You want to enter their email address. So if you enter their email address here, you'll never have to enter it when you're doing a signing again throughout the whole transaction. So we've got our seller in there. If there's two, then you pick both of them. So now, oh, let me tell you one more trick. If you're working with a transaction coordinator, then they'll probably have a set up for you, and then they would be included in here as general. So that way they're getting copied on everything that you're sending out as well. It's a good way to help communicate automatically without having to remember. So now we're to those forms. So we've got agency, we've got that KW disclosure, we've got our exclusive right, our withhold. Those are the mandatory ones. And then you'll decide if you need lead-based paint, then you'll keep it in there. If you don't, then you can delete it. So at this point, I go ahead and send that property disclosure out to our seller. So I'm going to show you how I do that. So I open up the form. And sorry, I have to move you guys again. And then I click over here on email. And I find what I'm going to send out. So that's the disclosure. Say you had a disclosure, you had the well disclosure and the location map all needed. You can select as many things as you want to email for them to edit. And then because you added them into the contacts, you can click on that little contact card, and then you can select who you want to send it to. So you want to send it to the seller. And then I always copy myself on everything. So then you can click on CC and add yourself. And then I change this. So I'm going to do 123 Main Street and then seller's property disclosure to complete. Right. And then I have a little message that I send them, and I make a note for them to click file and save because it does not automatically save in the system. But this is where you're going to click on allow editing of forms, and then you have to select an expiration date. So I just go out however long I think it's going to take them to complete it. And then I can click on send, and it's going to send them an email with my little message there and a link, and they can open up the link, and then they can edit this form just like I can in this system. So they can select the date, they can come in here and fill out the entire seller's property disclosure and save it. And they're going to have a little file here at the top, just like we do. And they can click, they'll just have less options, and they can click on save. And then I just ask them to let me know when they're done. And from then I can just grab this and send it to them for signatures. And I don't have to worry about going and picking up that disclosure or it being where you can't read it. They can do this at work. It makes it a lot more convenient for the sellers to fill it out if they're on email.
I have a question.
Okay. Yeah.
Are they able to draw the map for the sewer and well this way as well, or do they have to just print that out?
Yeah, so they have to print. So what I usually do is if it's a well, like if it's sealed, I take a screenshot for them of the map that's on the well sealing or seal record and just plop that on there for them. And then they can just initial it. But yeah, if it's the well map, they can't draw on it.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm. So once you're done, then you'll just hit save and exit, and it's going to take you back to your forms here. And so then you can keep going through. So the next, well, when I'm working for an agent, then the next thing I would do would be to send the listing input form. If you're doing this yourself, then you don't need to do that. I'll show you what to do here in a second. So then you can hit next and then done. And so now you have your template started, and then you're going to come back over here to forms and you can start completing them. So again, you just open up the first form and then you can go through each form and fill out the rest of the information. So if you had already filled out this broker admin fee, then you wouldn't need to do anything on this form. The one thing it does is it won't remove the agent from this side on this form for some reason. So you always have to come in and delete that other agent if you're copying an MLS. Then you can just hit save and exit and then move on to the next form. So now if you come in here to your listing, oh man, there we go. That was weird. Then you just have minimal stuff to fill out, right? You're going to see it's pulled in all this info, and then you have your listing contract. You've got your price. Oh, this is a contract. I put the wrong one in here. I put exclusive right to lease instead of list. That's why it looks weird. But I do the same thing with the property contract. And then you can just come through and complete anything that needs to be filled out that you didn't fill out in your template and that you didn't fill out in your with your wizard. And as you can see, like now everything is completed instead of manually entering all of this. So it can save a lot of time. And then the next piece is you can click up here on transaction forms instead of saving and exiting and going to the next form that way. There's a couple of different ways to do it. So now we have our withhold. So you just fill in your contract date and your expiration date. Single family. And then everything else is completed for you. All right. So then this is my next little trick is the MLS input form. So if you come in here to your MLS input form, and it's loading. All right, so it's going to pull in some of the information automatically. But then you would still have to like manually enter all of this from the old MLS. But if you come over here and you scroll down here to import listing, and then you paste in that MLS number again.
Kelly, will you touch base, and maybe you're going to, but if it's not on an MLS, and where to find that information or what your process is for getting that?
Yeah. So I will do that 1 second. So now it is pulled in that MLS listing and everything is filled out. So now you're just going through and editing, right? Instead of having to input everything. So you'll want to delete quite a bit here at the beginning because it's going to pull in old info and like the other brokerage, that stuff. So there are some things here. So it's not going to pull in the tax information. So that is where you would go to Hennepin County. And actually, I probably have this saved here. Or whatever county website you're doing this listing in. And you can search by address. And I think we were doing like Oak Ridge or something. And now you can pull this up and it's going to give you the tax information for that year. So then you can come back over here, and this hasn't been updated yet for 2021, but you can come over here, you can scroll down, it's homestead, and then the tax amount. And there's no assessment balance. It would show, at least Hennepin County, it shows it right here. It would show right here if there was, up here, if there's a special assessment. And then the other information that you'd fill in, if it wasn't, whether it's previously listed or not, is going to be the list price, the list date, expiration date. Make sure your compensation is correct based on your listing contract. And then your listing office. So this information you have to switch out to your own. And your ID. So all of that would have to be changed to your own. So if you don't have, if this hasn't been previously listed on the MLS, let's go back here, then part of it is you're going to probably print this out and head on over to the house and with your tape measure and start measuring and filling out the details. For my agents, I do have a Google sheet that I send out to all of our sellers, and it has quite a bit of the feature information so that the seller can fill that out, that portion out for us. Because a lot of the features, like, you might not know unless you were one in the house or really detailed, like spending some time in there. So you can get the information from your seller physically going to the house, and then you're going to collect it from the tax records, and then like directions, that's going to be on Google, the property legal description, all of that information. So that's going to be right here. Legal description is in this section. So you'll fill that in from there. So that's where you're going to collect all the info if it hasn't been previously listed on the MLS.
And what about like square footage? Obviously you're measuring each individual room, but like the below ground versus above ground, all of that, how do you do that?
Yeah, so you have to measure the outside of the house.
Okay.
And then the foundation, remember the foundation doesn't include the garage. I think Zoe Liston does a class, and I don't know how often, but I know Wendy has had her in, and
Yeah,
she does a whole class on how to measure houses.
I just took Zoe's class yesterday, and
Yeah.
I, even after sitting through it for 4 hours, I'm not sure I could actually do it if it was more than just a rectangular house. It's pretty complex. So I was
Yeah.
going to ask you, because she was saying, don't trust the previous listing as far as room sizes and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So gosh, that means you'd have to be going out to every single listing and measuring, you know.
Yeah.
all
There's people who you can pay to do that too.
Yeah, so there are some services. So like if you order Matterport from your photographer, sometimes they'll measure for you as an additional service. I can tell you if you have like Home Depot or the photographer measure, I find that the sellers complain a lot that it's not accurate. Zoe actually used to go out and measure houses, and I don't know if she still does. But you could pay her to go and measure, and she'd create a floor plan for you. Those are some options. I'm just not in that particular business too much, but I can tell you when I worked on Dana's team, we had Zoe measure every single house and did not copy from the old MLS. I can tell you, I don't have any agents right now that go and measure houses unless it hasn't been on the MLS, and they all copy the previous MLS listing. So I'm not saying that's right. I'm just saying that's what's done.
Isn't
What
there
Zoe is
a
saying
way-
is correct. Like, it's not technically, you can't confirm it unless you actually measure it.
Isn't there something we're supposed to say at the last page of the MLS input sheet about that, where you say, buyer's agent should confirm all measurements and things like, isn't there a way to protect yourself with that?
Yep. Yeah, that's very common for agents to put that in the agent remarks, buyer to verify all measurements.
Okay.
I've never had a buyer come back and complain about the measurements. It's always the seller that thinks their house is bigger, and they're the ones that complain and say that the measurements aren't right.
Yeah, and Zoe was saying how important it is that, first of all, she said that that little description there at the end, Maureen, will not save you in a court of law. And she said, if we get the measurements wrong by copying from a previous listing and we're continuing to perpetuate wrong measurements, it throws off the, when they go to do comps, if
Yeah.
they're looking at square footage. And so you could get a lot of wrong information. And the assessors and whatever, they couldn't even find a comp if the square footage was wrong. So of course, Zoe is all about measuring it every time, but she did not mention that she does do her own appraisals, I guess. She has an appraisal business.
Yes.
But she didn't mention that she'll just measure houses for a fee. I think she's too busy.
Yeah, she might not do that for everyone. There are some agents in the office, I believe, that still use her or did use her. I don't know if she's still doing that. I mean, this was quite a few years ago, so.
Yeah.
Is there a reason why the MLS input sheet does not have a section where it gives the total square feet? Like I know it will do above ground total and below ground and, but there's nowhere that it gives the total. And I know when you're looking at the MLS listing or the previous listings, they always list the total square feet. And so
It's because it automatically adds it. So you don't get
Okay.
to enter the total when you're
Okay.
entering the MLS. You enter above and below and it'll total it for
it'll
you.
total it. Okay.
And I
It,
think
it won't let you mess up the math.
What if you have a listing where you have the previous MLS sheet and it was from the original builder? Can you count on that?
This is all an opinion, and Zoe is very strict on her measurements. Like I said, I have 30 agents in the Twin Cities and not one of them measures their own listings except for if it hasn't been measured before. I'm not saying she's wrong. She is right. I'm just saying that's not the practice that's actually happening out there, or that you shouldn't do that. I'm not saying that. You should measure. I'm just saying that's not what's actually happening.
I'm kind of, so Zoe, is she like in the like a policy or handbook? This is a person that we're talking about, right?
Yeah, Zoe's a person.
Okay.
She's a realtor and an appraiser, and she's been doing that measuring your listing class for a long time, like probably 15, 20 years. I don't know, a long time since I've been here.
Got it. But I can
So
still
she's-
use it. But it's my discretion if I choose to use the builder's information, correct?
Or what's already on the MLS, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, you're taking a risk by allowing someone else to measure for you. Like, that's your risk. I can tell you if your measurements are different than the 8 listings before it, you're gonna get questioned. That happens.
Yeah, I know. That's why I would make me use what's already there.
Which
But
is
it may
funny
not be
because
accurate. Like, it could
because
be it could be wrong 8 times in a row, and that's what she was saying.
My listing in December was wrong like 3 times in a row. I measured it and measured it and measured it.
Mhm.
And the reason why I didn't just go with them is because the guy who listed it, my client, he changed his garage to a living space and then added a garage beyond that like 10 years ago. So I felt the need to remeasure everything, and I realized that it was very far off. And I think that's just what happened, is it was wrong maybe the first time, and then for 2 or 3 different transactions beforehand, it had been wrong.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so any more questions on MLS input forms? And how to collect the information, fill it in, complete it, those kind of things.
Does it autofill it all with Wizard and then you can go back and edit it? Or is it just that you still have to be putting everything in line by line?
So if you pull in a listing, so if you pull in the listing when you first create the transaction, it'll pull in whatever info is in that. And then it'll update from the wizard when you are completing going through the wizard. But if you want the measurements and the other pieces, then you have to do this file and then import your listing again. And that's how it pulls in the other details.
Okay,
If not, it'll be blank.
okay,
But when it pulls in the details, it's going to pull in exactly what was on that MLS. So you have to make sure that you're changing the price and the date and the commission and the listing people and like those things, the taxes, you have to import that every time. Okay, so any more questions on the?
I did have one question. For
Yeah.
the, I know you said for directions, Google automatically ports over, or do I have to like manually go and get the direction information and then paste it there?
Oh, no. Like you'll have to like Google the address and look at the map and write your own directions if it's never been on there before.
Okay, perfect. Because I was going to say Google sometimes does a horrible job, especially with the new builds, with the new construction. You can like never find it. So it's like, that's terrible. Okay, perfect.
Yep. So, for sure. Yeah, I would just Google the address, look at the map, and then write your own directions. Any more questions? All right, so, I think that's about all of our forms unless there's specific questions on like the disclosures, but I showed you how to send that. And then does everyone know how to do a signing like from once you have all of your forms correct?
yes.
Yeah, okay. So I'm not gonna go through that. The only thing, and then you can always click here on signings too and see all of them that you are or what you have going. And then if you're entering your contacts, then they'll auto populate and you guys know how to pick your transaction when you're doing the signing. So then all your forms and everything and your people all automatically pull in there. Everybody know how to do that?
No.
Okay. So once you're done with all of your forms, you'll click over here on the pen. And then you're going to click on add and you'll type in, right, the address. And then I always call it listing docs. And then right here, this is where you're going to pick your transaction. And then you'll click save. And then you can either do sign in line or first come, first serve, and you can change the name of the signing if you want. And then participants, now if you click on this, it's going to show you all the participants that you added into your signing or into your transaction. So then you can click on them and add them in here. So like if you have a transaction coordinator, this is where you'd see them and you could CC them right on this. So that way, once everyone signs, then they'll get a copy of it. And then you can click on your documents here and it's going to show you all of your forms. So you can click on all the ones that you want signed right then. So say we do need that lead-based paint, but they haven't filled out the seller's disclosure. You don't want to include that because it'll be blank. And then same thing if they're like the input form, if you're not done with it, you don't want to include it until it's done. So then you can click on add. And then it's going to pull in all of those documents right in here. And then you can go to design and add your signature boxes. Most of them should already be filled out because these are all populated forms. So see how it just automatically, well, not the disclosure, you have to add all the little boxes on there. But like the listing contract and whatnot, it'll pull them all in there. Okay. So seller net sheet. That was the other question. Oh, I don't want to do that right now. Okay. So we added a calculator like this on our website. But what I did before that was Title Smart. So they have a seller net sheet calculator. And I find this to be way easier to fill this out online and download a PDF than to fill out the little spreadsheet. So if you click on calculate, then you're going to enter in just all of the information here. So what the estimated purchase price is going to be. And then if they gave you an estimate of their mortgage payoff, you can put that in there. You're going to put your commission in here. If you have a broker admin fee, you would add that in here. Here, we'll just do one so you can see it. And let's say they have a $200,000 mortgage. And we're doing 6%. So real estate taxes due at closing, so proration. So this is, so if we go back here and you have taxes for the year are $3876.24. All right, so 3876.24. This all depends on when you're closing. So because taxes are paid twice a year in April and October. So if the first half of the year was already paid, then well, we'll just say it's right now. So we're in March. So the first half of the year hasn't been paid yet. So you would take the 3,860 or 876 and then just divide that by 365 days. So that's $10.62 a day, right? And then we're going to times that by when you estimate the tax, when you estimate the closing date. So if you think that you're going to close by, you know, April 1st, then you're just going to multiply that by however many days it is until April 1st, from January 1 to April 1st. So if that is, let's see, there's 31 and 28, 31 plus 28 plus 31. So that's 90 days. So 90 times 1062. So that's $388.22 that the seller would owe for taxes. Potentially, it could be a credit if they already paid. And then you have to subtract out those days because the buyer is going to reimburse them for the difference because they already paid for the first half.
So is that if they pay in April, but then they close in like May?
Yeah, exactly.
It is
I
May
think
15th.
the taxes are
right?
due May and October. It's May and October.
Sorry, yeah.
Oh,
that's exactly
sorry.
what I meant.
Yeah,
I
May and
got it.
October.
So it's
Sorry.
before or after the pay date is when it's prorated for.
Yep. And so it's either going to be a credit or a debit to the seller, depending on when it was paid and when the closing is. And so I just always take the total amount and then divide it by 365 and then figure out how many days it is until closing, from January to closing or from the payment date until closing, so that then you can put that in here.
If you're closing in August though, right? I mean, wouldn't it be that 338 something divided by 2 and then due by 160 just because it's if in August, then they're still getting prorated, correct?
Yep, because the first half would have been paid in May,
Sure.
so you don't even have to worry about that. Like, so then you're taking that $3,800, you're right, dividing it by 2 and only dealing with the second half of the year.
Okay.
So this might be a stupid question, but then, so you don't do this then until you have an accepted offer because you're putting a closing date in, correct?
You can
So
guesstimate though. I mean,
you
especially
can guess, yeah. So I don't think our office requires it. They don't. Our office does not require a seller net sheet until you have a purchase agreement. So it's only due on the under contract side. So at that point, you would just fill this in and only have to figure out based on that closing date. But I will tell you, lesson learned, you should make sure that your sellers have a good idea of what it's going to be at closing. Because if it's tight, which we might not be in that market right now, but we could be in the future, where you have sellers that are upside down or very close to being upside down, you're going to want to do this net sheet at the listing time and estimate what you think it's going to sell for. And maybe even estimate what seller paid closing costs. So that's this box down here. Like if you're in that 250, 350, like somewhere in there where your buyers are asking for seller paid closing costs every time, then you might want to just go ahead and estimate that in here for your seller when you're listing to make sure that they know a good idea of what they're going to get at closing, especially if they're purchasing another property and they're banking on the money from this to buy the next one. Or they can't sell because they're upside down, or they're going to be a short sale or something like that. So even though it's not required at the time of listing, it's a good idea to have the conversation and make sure you have an idea of what they're going to be getting at closing, or they have an idea so that they're making the proper plans ahead of time. Okay, so then that's that seller paid closing cost. You can put that in here. If there's a home warranty that the buyer or that the seller is going to pay for, you can put that in here. If they're not, then you don't put it. Association dues, those have to be all caught up. So that's a good question to ask as well. If they're current on their association dues.
Could that also be prorated? Or is that
Yep.
just typically, okay,
Yep, it would be prorated. But sometimes they can get behind. Like if they got a few months behind and they have to catch up,
gotcha.
they will have to catch up at closing. They're not going to let them close without it. And then it'll show you then their estimated net proceeds down here at the bottom. And so then you have the whole little calculator and you can just click on this and print. And then you can do a print to PDF. Make sense? So this is, I find, a little bit easier. You can find different little calculators if you just Google for them. The one that we actually have on our website, I don't think you have to figure out the taxes anymore. Like you put in what you think the closing date is and the annual taxes, and it'll calculate it for you. So there are fancier calculators that'll calculate like those kind of things for you.
And you say your website?
Yeah, well, it's on the Exceptional Home Team website.
Oh, okay.
I'll show you.
And you don't use KW, correct? You have your own, yeah.
It was like an add-on. It's this little, I'll show you. I think it's here. So it's this little house here on the side. Oops. And so you can, sorry, your little faces are in the way. So you can get seller net sheets. And this one is connected with our title company. I don't know if Minnesota Title is connected with like this particular platform. They may be, and then you can get this like added to your website. It's just a little widget. And then you can fill those out. And so you just register and then you can do the net sheet right on your website. Like even your sellers can go do it themselves.
And can I ask you one other question regarding the county recording fees and stuff like that? I think I learned this in real estate school. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, Was it all the same? Is it the same fee for everything?
Yeah, so like if you use a local company, it'll show you how much, like the recording fees are between 75 and 150. If it's a divorce, then you have to assume that there's going to be definitely on the high end or the extra ones, because it's like, I want to say it's like $40 per page or something at the county.
Okay.
The conservation fee is like that duck fee. In some counties, it's not there, but most counties it is. It's $5. Some of these are pretty standard. And then that's the other conversation that you have with your seller is this is just an estimate. You're going to get a preliminary Alta statement from the title company once we actually have it submitted and they pulled title work and they've gotten your payoff and those kind of things. And that one's going to be accurate. This is just an estimate to make sure that they have a good idea of how much money they're getting at closing or how much money they're going to have to put towards the new house and those kind of items.
Okay, thank you.
But yeah, I would stress it's an estimate.
Right.
Should we be getting the mortgage payoff from them, or is that something that's listed on the public records as well?
No, I would get it from them, and you don't have to have it. You can always leave that blank and just let them know, hey, remember you have to pay your mortgage off with this amount. A lot of times they just give you an estimate. If you have a high C, you might stress them out if you ask them for their payoff amount, because they're going to want to call the mortgage company and get it right down to the penny. And so, if you're asking the seller, hey, what's the estimate of your payoff? Like just round it up, right? If it's $230,000, like let's just go with 240 or 235 or something like that. And let them know this is just an estimate. You don't have to have it down to the penny, because you will have some sellers that'll it'll stress them out. And then they'll call the mortgage company and the mortgage company will be like, well, it's a $40 fee for me to send you your payoff, right? So that's how I handle that conversation. Or you just don't put it in there and you just let them know that this doesn't include their mortgage payoff. What other questions do you guys have? I think we're over time here, but I'm happy to help if you have additional questions, or we can even do another class too.
I'm pretty new. I basically started this week, so I'll probably email you with a bunch of questions.
Gotcha. Anyone else? Was this helpful?
This was helpful. Thank
Very
you.
helpful. Very helpful.
Okay.
Thank you, Kelly.
Other
You're
thing,
welcome.
does Lydia do our input, or are we responsible if we're an individual agent?
I think Lydia will do input. Yep. And then I will plug myself a little bit. We've got profile transaction management, so we can handle all these details for you. We would set up a template. We'd send your listing docs. We'd organize stager, picture, sign, getting the withheld entered, getting it entered into the MLS, uploading the photos, sending out the net sheet, all of those documents, and communicating with your seller through that whole part of the transaction. And that service is $150.
Nice.
Wow.
Mhm.
It's a pretty good deal.
Probably seems
Does that
worth-
include them taking the staging photos? Did you say that?
Yeah, so we'd schedule a stager if you have one. Like if you're paying for a staging consultation, we'll schedule that for you. And then schedule the photos. Like the staging and the photos would be a cost to you, but
Got
we'll
it.
organize it. Yep.
Okay. Okay. Perfect.
And Kelly, that's everything after you get stuff signed, right? I mean, like
We'll
we take-
send out, we'll send out 4 signatures. So if you just say, yep, I've got this listing, you'll just fill out a form with the seller's contact information and what you want on the listing contract, like whatever your commission is and those kind of things. And then we'll take it from there and send it out for electronic signature and collect it all. Mhm.
That's all on your website that we can fill that out, or how do we
Yep.
do that? Okay.
Yep. Yep. So we have a short registration form for agents and there's no cost to get registered. So even if you just want to get registered and then send me an email that has your email signature in it, so I can get that set up in my system. You don't ever have to use us. But if you do want to use us, you're sick, you're on vacation, you don't feel like doing it, or you're really busy, then you can always just send over a file and you're ready to go. The registration form is basically your contact information, your logins to some platforms, and who you like to use for some vendors. And that's all I need really to get started. And then your email signature, because everything that we send out to your people will be branded to you. Like we look like we're just right part of your team.
Awesome.
Mhm. Yeah.
And is that just for the input and getting documents signed, or is that kind of towards like the entire process?
So
Because I'm
that,
a little unfamiliar.
yeah, no, that's okay. So listing launch is that list, like this part of the listing. So we can create and send out your listing documents and then get everything ready to go live and get it entered onto the MLS and go live. We'll do price reductions and open houses as well. And then, so that's the 150. And then contract to close is once you get a purchase agreement on your listing, then that service, whether it's seller or buyer, is $375. And then we handle, making sure you get through inspections and appraisal and getting over to title work, getting everything entered into compliance. And again, we're communicating with your buyers and sellers, the co-agent, keeping everyone on track with those due dates. And then, we ask for referrals and reviews online for you throughout the process. We have really cool email templates and resources that are included in all of our system that we send out. And so that's part of our contract to close. And then we also actually have an offer writing service. And so that's extended hours outside of the Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. And that we'll do offer writing for you. That's 9 to 9 Monday through Friday, and then 11 to 7 on the weekends.
The offer writing is we just say, hey, I've got a lister, I want to write an offer on this property. These are
Yep.
the terms. You write it up and send it
Yep.
over.
Yep, exactly. Yep, it's a form on our website. Again, you just fill out the form. We'll get the offer written for you. You can do the form right from your phone. So in between showings.
Right.
And then we will send it out. It goes to the agent first. They can review inside. And then so we use that sign in line setting. And then I'll go to each of your buyers, and then it'll go out to listing agent automatically if that's what you choose, or it'll go to your inbox if you want to send a special message with it.
Okay, perfect. And how much is that? Just out of curiosity.
Yeah, so that's $100 per offer. And we will write 3 offers per buyer for that $100. So when you're in multiple offers and you're losing, we want to help with that a little bit.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Kelly?
All of this can be found on our website, including some video testimonials if you want to see what other agents say about how we work.
Thanks, Kelly.
Yeah. Let me know if you have any more questions, if you guys want an additional class or anything else that I can help with. And I'm happy to, I'm going to switch out that form to the right listing contract instead of the leasing one. And then anyone can use that template.
Okay.
It should be shared. I'll make sure that it's shared in there for you guys.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. All right. You guys have
How
a
will
great,
how will I
yeah.
see that it's shared? Like, where do I go to see with that?
So when you go to a new transaction
Mhm.
and you go to click on add, you'll see it in the drop down.
Oh, so even though I didn't create it, I'll see that y'all see yours in there. Okay. Sounds good.
Yep. And I just called it listing docs.
Thanks.
Yep. So it'll be right under here on that template. It'll show listing docs.
Awesome.
Mhm. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Kelly. That was a lot of great information.
Yeah,
Appreciate
you're
it.
welcome. Yeah, no problem. All right. You guys have a great rest of your day. Talk to you soon.
Have a great day. Bye,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye.